So I'm going to start this off by reading the passage here. Today's reading comprehension practice comes from The Sun Also Rises, and then I'll give you a chance to pause the video and answer some questions. So it says, Robert Cohn was once middleweight boxing champion of Princeton. Do not think that I am very much impressed by that as a boxing title, but it meant a lot to Cohn. There was a certain inner comfort in knowing he could knock down anybody who was snooty to him. Although being very shy and a thoroughly nice boy, he never fought except in the gym. He was Spider Kelly's star pupil. So the first question I'd like you to try to answer is how many characters were introduced in the paragraph above? And I always say this in my reading comprehension videos, but if I ever read at a pace that's too fast, know that I'm expecting that you'll pause the video and take your time reading to make sure that you're reading at a pace that makes sense for you. So pause the video and try this out, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so the correct answer here is we have Robert Cohn, and we have the narrator, and then Spider Kelly. And so it's not quite clear yet with the roles everyone's going to play. Is Spider Kelly actually going to be a main character, or is that just someone that was mentioned here? But we would want to include everybody here that was mentioned as potential characters in the story. Okay, so the next question I have is, which of the following is the best inference we can make based on the text in the above paragraph? So you can pause the video, read the answer choices, and then when you're ready, go on and we'll check the answer. So the answer here is B. Robert Cohn would rather leave a bar than get in a fight. Why do we know that? Well, look at the highlighted text on screen. It says he never fought except in the gym. So he's not going to get in a bar fight, right? Because that would be outside of the gym. So the passage goes on and says, Spider Kelly taught all his young gentlemen to box like featherweights, no matter whether they weighed 105 or 205 pounds. But it seemed to fit Cohn. He was really very fast. He was so good that Spider promptly overmatched him and got his nose permanently flattened. In your own words, please state what you think the word overmatched means here. So pause the video, try this out, and then we'll go over it. So what I want you to see here is that overmatched just means that Robert Cohn had to fight competitors that were too difficult for him to compete against. So as long as you realize that we were talking about something like that, you probably had the right answer. It goes on to say, this increased Cohn's distaste for boxing, but it gave him a certain satisfaction of some strange sort, and it certainly improved his nose. In his last year at Princeton, he read too much and took to wearing spectacles. I never met anyone of his class who remembered him. They did not even remember that he was middleweight boxing champion. Okay, so your next question here. Which of the following is the best inference based on the text in the paragraph above? And you can pause the video and take your time with this, and then when you're ready, we'll go over this. The correct answer here is that he did not have any friends at Princeton. And we know this because it says right here, I never met anyone of his class who remembered him. So if nobody remembered him, how could he have had a lot of friends? Because if he had a lot of friends and was Mr. Popularity, probably somebody would remember him, all right? And so an inference is just you're making an educated guess based off of what you know from the story and your own experience here. And B would be the best inference here. So it goes on to say, I mistrust all frank and simple people, especially when their stories hold together. And I always had a suspicion that perhaps Robert Cohn had never been middleweight boxing champion, and that perhaps a blank had stepped on his face, or that maybe his mother had been frightened or seen something, or that he had maybe bumped into something as a young child. But I finally had somebody verify the story from Spider Kelly. Spider Kelly not only remembered Cohn, he had often wondered what had become of him. Okay, so the next question is, which word most likely fits in the blank above? So pause the video, think this over, and then when you're ready, we'll move on. The correct answer here is a horse, and so would a car be able to step on somebody? No, a car could run over somebody, but a car is not a real thing. It can't step on somebody. Now, a candy bar is not going to step on somebody. A ladybug is a living thing that could step on somebody's face, but a ladybug is much smaller than a horse. And so you would just have to kind of use logic and reasoning to come to B, hopefully, is the right answer. And if you didn't get B, then at least you tried your best. So as long as you try, you're going to learn. So it goes on to say, he was a nice boy, a friendly boy, and very shy. And it made him bitter. He took it out in boxing, and he came out of Princeton with painful self-consciousness and the flattened nose, and was married by the first girl who was nice to him. He was married 5 years, had 3 children, lost most of the $50,000 his father left him, the blank of the estate having gone to his mother, hardened into a rather unattractive mold under domestic unhappiness with a rich wife, and just when he had made up his mind to leave, his wife, she left him and went off with a miniature painter. Okay, so your next question here is, which word best fits in the blank? And I'd like you to pause the video and try this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over it. And again, just as a general reminder here, I know that I'm reading at a pretty fast pace to keep the video moving along, and I don't expect that you're going to take everything in just from hearing me say it. So it's always good to pause and take your time rereading anything that didn't make sense the first time. So hopefully you got the answer here as B, balance. But like I said, if not, hey, you're learning. It's perfectly okay. So it goes on to say, the divorce was arranged and Robert Cohn went out to the coast. In California, he fell among literary people, and as he still had a little of the $50,000 left in a blank time, he was backing a review of the arts. The review commenced publication in Carmel, California, and finished in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Okay, which word most likely fits in the blank above? A, B, C, or D? Try to figure this out, and then we'll go over it. So the correct answer here is C, in a short time. Okay, it goes on to say, by that time Cohn, who had been regarded purely as an angel, and whose name had appeared on the editorial page merely as a member of the advisory board, had become the sole editor. It was his money, and he discovered he liked the authority of editing. He was sorry when the magazine became too expensive, and he had to give it up. Which of the following is false? A, B, C, or D? I'd like you to pause the video, try to figure this out, and then as always, we'll go over it. So the answer here is C. Cohn never became the sole editor, right? It says, look at the yellow up there, look at the highlighted text. It says, had become the sole editor. It tells right off of the passage here that he had became the sole editor, so that's why C is false. It goes on to say, by that time, though, he had other things to worry about. He had been taken in hand by a lady who hoped to rise with the magazine. She was very forceful, and Cohn never had a chance of not being taken in hand. Also, he was sure that he loved her. When this lady saw that the magazine was not going to rise, she became a little disgusted with Cohn and decided that she might as well get what there was to get while there was still something available. So she urged that they go to Europe, where Cohn could write. Okay, next question here. What do you think this paragraph tells us about Cohn's new woman? There are no right or wrong answers, just a critical thinking exercise to help you think and process on a deeper level here. So pause the video, try this out, and then when you're ready, we'll go over it. Okay, so here, I'm thinking maybe she only likes him for his success, and maybe his money, maybe she's shallow. Not 100% clear, but we have to look at the information that the author is telling us about the character, and we want to make assumptions. We want to think, why would the author be telling us this? What does it tell us about the character? This is what I'm thinking right now. We'll see if that's true as we read further, potentially. They came to Europe, where the lady had been educated, and stayed 3 years. During these 3 years, the first spent in travel, the last 2 in Paris, Robert Cohn had 2 friends, Braddock's and myself. Braddock's was his literary friend. I was his tennis friend. Okay, next question. Where did the author spend his 2nd year while in Europe? I'd like you to pause the video, reread if you need to, and then when you're ready, you have your answer, unpause it, and we'll go on to the next question. So the answer here is Paris. It tells us he spent the last 2 in Paris, right? There's 3 years, 1 in travel, the last 2 in Paris. It goes on to say, the lady who had him, her name was Frances, found toward the end of the 2nd year that her looks were going, and her attitude towards Robert changed from one of careless possession and exploitation to the absolute determination that he should marry her. During this time, Robert's mother had settled an allowance on him, about $300 a month. During 2 years and a half, I do not believe that Robert Cohn looked at another woman. Okay, what are some inferences you can draw from the last sentence of the paragraph? I'd like you to pause the video, try to think of at least two. And again, an inference is just an educated guess or like an assumption that you're making. In other words, why do you think the author is including this information in the last sentence, and what do you think it tells us? So pause the video, think of at least two things, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so these are just two, there's no right or wrong answers, but some things I thought of was maybe he loved her too much to look at other women, or maybe he was just too busy. And, whatever you came up with, like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. I just want to get you thinking. It goes on to say, he was fairly happy except that, like many people living in Europe, he would rather have been in America. And he had discovered writing. He wrote a novel, and it was not really such a bad novel, as the critics later called it, although it was a very poor novel. He read many books, played bridge, played tennis, and blank at the local gymnasium. Which word most likely fits in the blank here? A, B, C, or D? You know the drill by now. Pause the video, try this out, and then we'll go over it. Alright, the correct answer here is B, boxed, and hopefully this was helpful for you. Just kind of a short and sweet, hopefully, reading comprehension video for today. If you like this kind of content, I've got plenty more reading comprehension videos on my channel for you to watch, and I really hope that your test goes well. Let me know how you do down below.